Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Nicole and I'm a part-time reseller on POSHMARK, and today I want to talk about how to make a good listing and how to take good photos and everything that is going to be key for your listings on POSHMARK to make your items sell. If that is something that is interesting to you, definitely keep watching and make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss a future video that I do here on this channel. The first thing that comes with your listings to make them good is just having good inventory. So that's the first step, that's the most important step, is making sure that the inventory that you are listing is good and not just like random pieces of junk. You want to have items that people actually want and that are actually, purchasing. And so that's the first thing. Then the second thing from there is to just make sure that the setup is good for when you're taking your photos. So for example, I always say that using natural daylight is the best thing that you can do. It's going to give you the most accurate representation of the item, and it's really going to shine the best light on the item and really make sure that the colors are, exactly what they should be. But I've actually seen a lot of people say that they can't take their photos in daylight, and I actually used to not take my photos in daylight. And so I've come up with a solution for you, but I do think it's still going to be a little bit better to take them in daylight if you can. But if you can't, what you can do is just make sure that the room that you're in is really well lit. You don't want it to be a dark room, and you want to make sure that whenever you're taking the photo, the lighting is coming from behind you or in front of the item. If you're taking a picture of the item that's against a wall and the light is like coming from behind it, it's going to like kind of backlit the item and it's going to make it really hard to see. But then again, if you have a light that's like directly shining on it, like that's like a foot away from it, it's going to make it really hard to see, and it's not going to give it an accurate coloring. Now, a lot of people say, like, do I need a fancy light? Do I need a fancy camera? All this stuff. I don't think you do. I think you can get away with just a, well-lit room, and also just making sure that the lighting is coming from proper angles. Because if your lighting is on the side of where you're taking the photo, the listing is going to kind of have a weird shadow to it. So make sure that it's coming from directly in front of, where you're taking the photos, and make sure it's not like too distorting, like whether it's too bright or too dull. You want to make sure that it's like the proper amount of lighting. And so I always recommend, if you're going to take it against a wall, make sure that the light source is, on the opposite side of the room as you, and it's not like, shining too bright and distorting anything. The next thing that's going to help you have a good listing is just making sure that the background is plain. You don't want anything too overwhelming. You don't want anything that has like distractions or, something like that. And so I always recommend using a white background, a white wall, a white curtain, or, anything like that. If you have a mannequin, I suggest using a mannequin as well. But if you don't have a mannequin, you can use like a hanger or something like that and just hang it against a white wall. I think that is the best thing that you can do. Okay, so the next thing that's gonna really help your listing and make sure it's, has all the details as needed is making sure you take photos of every angle of the item. Make sure you're taking photos of the size tag, the material tag, the textures, the colors, any micro patterns that exist. And also make sure you're noting if the item is sheer or not. I think what is really good to do is take a video of the item. You get one video and 16 pictures with each listing. So I always, if there's like textures that I want to highlight, or if there's a sheerness to the item, or if there's a certain material, I like to highlight that in one of the videos that you have. So you can like kind of put your hand through the shirt and show that it's sheer. You can, hang it against more of like a well-lit area, and then it'll show that it's sheer that way. Or you can take a picture close up or a video of like a material if it's fuzzy, and that would actually really help the person determine, a better judgment on the item. So I really recommend taking every angle of the photo, include the back of the item, include measurements, include everything that you could possibly think of that's going to be something that somebody would ask for, and just make sure that those listing photos are good, and that's going to help you have way more success. And the final thing that's going to help your listing photos itself look good is just making sure that you're taking, close-ups of the material, but also far away shots. So like, for example, if you have a very long dress, a maxi dress, to get the whole photo in the listing, which is what you're supposed to do for the cover photo, you might not see those patterns or anything. So I recommend taking a close-up of what the pattern is and maybe including that in the cover photo, or also just doing it in the corresponding next couple photos. And that's going to help the buyer know exactly what pattern they are looking at, and making sure that they don't, you know, get misled by they don't know what the item looks like because you took a photo that, you know, you couldn't see the small patterns. So that is how I would recommend photographing the item. And like I've said in prior videos, it's so important to make sure that those descriptions are accurate too. I always recommend putting every color, pattern, material, measurements, if it's a boxy fit, if it's a cropped fit, if it's loose or stretchy, things like that. I always recommend being very, very detailed in those descriptions because that's going to save you from cases, and it's also going to help you win cases if you get cases against you. So it's just, it goes such a long way to just have those details put there to begin with. So basically when you're, you know, when you're listing the shirt, you know, if it's stretchy, note that. If it's not stretchy, note that. If it's sheer, note that. There's so many things that you can note while you're going through the description, and you have enough room to kind of be very detailed. So I recommend using as much of that room as you can and make those listings as detailed as possible. So I hope this helped you kind of come up with how to make your listings better and how to photograph your items better. These are things that are really going to bring success to your listings and make them sell quicker, because having good photos and having accurate descriptions is what is really key on Poshmark to make your items stand out. So I hope this helped you, and if you want to see another video on hacks that you should use on Poshmark, these are things that are going to help you just have more success but are just cooler things to do, you can go ahead and click right here. And if you want to see a video on features that you should be using on Poshmark, you can click right here. But until next time, I will see you then.